So let's talk trade rumors. The
Mhm.
Knicks have been in talks with the New Orleans Pelicans and the Detroit Pistons, as far as I'm concerned,
Mhm.
for guys like Derrick Rose, for guys like Lonzo Ball. It's definitely been interesting, I'd say. Um, I honestly did not expect Derrick Rose to be on our radar, but I did expect Lonzo Ball to be on our radar. So I'll talk. How about we talk about Lonzo Ball first, right? According to Scoop B, who's an NBA insider, he's like an agent. Lonzo Ball has interest from teams like the Bulls, the Clippers, the Knicks, Magic, Raptors, and Mavericks. So that's quite a lengthy list of teams. Eliminating a few right away, I'd say the Magic, the Clippers, and the Bulls, I don't think are going to make aggressive moves for him as the Knicks, Raptors, and Mavericks may. And I'd even maybe push the Raptors out of that conversation. Just considering they have guys like Kyle Lowry, and are you really willing to rebuild this early? Who knows? So you
Mhm.
got guys like like the Mavericks and Knicks, who I think are serious contenders to maybe trade for him. I feel like the Mavericks would be they'd be giving up some assets for him. They want that kind of big three of Lonzo, Luca, and Porzingis. I could see that definitely happening, but I could also see the Knicks not giving a Godfather offer for him because it is just Lonzo Ball at the end of the day. But I could see the Knicks throwing a serviceable offer at the Pelicans, one that they might not refuse, depending on the packages they get. But I'm sorry, I have to mention one more team, Zach. I didn't.
Mhm.
I left this out just strictly because of the tweet, but I know that the Warriors were also in some legitimate talks about a Kelly Oubre deal. I
Yeah.
know they were looking for JJ Redick, so that's also something that could be a threat to the Knicks and getting Lonzo Ball. But aside from that sort of conversation with the Warriors, I'd say that probably the Knicks have the second best chance, if not the first best chance to get them, just depending on the trade we throw at them. So obviously, I put together a little trade here, me and Zach together, and I'd say it's appropriate that we give up like someone like Kevin Knox, Austin Rivers, who I do want to keep, but at the same time, he's a guy who's pretty much in his prime at this point. He's a legitimate guy. He's on a great contract. Someone the Pelicans would like to have, I'm sure, especially in a West playoff team situation. And Frank Ntilikina, who obviously has not really had a great time on this Knicks team. He's not really getting any more opportunities. You also throw in that unprotected Dallas first, which I think is kind of the trade bait in that trade, because that could potentially be a lottery pick. As much as maybe you could say that the Mavericks will slide into playoffs, this and that. They're 8-9 right now. I watched the game against the Nuggets last night. They look kind of sloppy. I don't know if that team's going to make it to the playoffs. So we're talking about a potential top anywhere between 10 and 14 pick right there, with Kevin Knox, Frank, and Austin for Lonzo. And worst case scenario, it's 15 through 20 because they're not going to be a 1 seed. They're not going to be a 2 seed, right? So it's going to be quite the, I'd say, interesting situation. Do you take Kelly Oubre and potentially trade bait as in like a first, or do you take guys like Kevin Knox, who you're gonna have to bank on, you're gonna have to take a gamble on, and this first round pick that you also have to take a gamble on? What do you think, Zach?
I think this is a great trade. I think this helps like fix that messy point guard kind of situation. So I feel like we really cleaned that up, making it Lonzo, then quickly bring in
Yep.
those young guys. Obviously, Lonzo. Hopefully, he's got a good amount more developing. He needs it. So I feel like that would be great to complement right in front of quickly for now.
Mhm.
And we obviously Frank's just not working out. Rivers, once we signed him, we said he was great trade bait.
Right.
This would be a perfect trade to do it. And that Mavs pick, when you were saying from 10 to 14, I don't think we're going to get anybody better than Lonzo Ball or in that area. So I feel like just flip it. I feel like the Clippers don't really have any picks with the Paul George trade. So, like you were saying, with the Clippers not really being an option to trade, just more reason why we are just a better suitor and we can provide more. And just Hernan Gomez at the end just to clear cat. So I feel like it's a great trade. Hopefully, I don't know what team can really offer more than that. We're sliding a lot of young assets when we're not that good yet. So yeah, I don't really think there's really a much better trade that any team really is going to offer.
No,
We'll see.
I
Oh, and of
completely
course Kevin
agree.
Knox.
obviously with
Yeah.
Kevin Knox. We're taking a gamble on trading Kevin Knox because we have seen flashes from him this season of a consistent player. That is, if he was able to get consistent minutes. Maybe before you trade Kevin Knox, you start him for a few games. You see what you can do. Maybe you'd increase his trade value as well. I think there's definitely a lot of scenarios that the Knicks could pull off in this sort of trade. But I think that this is a great offer, especially for a guy in Lonzo Ball that will be a restricted free agent. So he could definitely just accept his qualifying offer, which is, I believe, around $10 million or something like that. Maybe 10, 11 million, not exactly sure. But if he just accepts his qualifying offer, we get him for max a year and a half. So that's going to be a situation where we're kind of also taking a gamble here. Is Lonzo going to come back? He's got, I think maybe it's a team option. I think it's a player option though, $14.3 million in the which is the qualifying offer in 21-22 free agency. But I'm sure he'd like to go for more of a long-term deal. So the Knicks have to have complete confidence that this guy Lonzo is going to sign back with them if we're going to give up, I'd say, 2 good young assets with that pick and a very, very valuable contract in Austin Rivers that could even land us a first-round pick at the deadline if we play our cards right. But obviously, just for more of like a player filler, we'd also taken Hernan Gomez, who's really just an insignificant part of the trade. You could interchange him with anybody on that roster making under $1 million a year and it would work. But I think that they'll probably ask for a guy like Quickly. I would be very surprised if the Knicks decided they wanted to give up that much for a guy like Lonzo. And I know that's, maybe it sounds a little dramatic that I'm saying, yeah, we're giving up too much for Lonzo if it's just Quickly, but the kid has a lot of potential. He's young. He's younger than Lonzo. And so far, me and Zach talked about it a little bit earlier, he's already got a higher career high than Lonzo does. I mean, do you really expect us in his first 15 games of his entire NBA career to just trade him away that easily? No, we're not going to do that. If anything, we're asking for more if you want Quickly. It's that simple. But I definitely think that that's a serviceable trade. I think that's something we can pull off. And I like it. I like the idea of getting Lonzo on this team. I think he fits perfectly under Thibodeau. And he's just a guy who I believe would be a great defender on this team, obviously, like I said, under Thibodeau. And he can get his offense going. I know his splits haven't been great this year, somewhere around 43% from the field, which is kind of ugly. But at the end of last season, I did mention to Zach, he had a lot of bursts of potential. He was getting triple-doubles, left, right, and center. He was scoring 20-plus a game. And if we can bring him back to that version of Lonzo Ball, we got a really nice complementary piece around guys like R.J. Barrett and Obi Toppin, who are both, honestly, Mitchell Robinson and Obi Toppin, who are both lob threats, right? So that's going to be just a beautiful-looking team if we get Lonzo on it. And I think that there's definitely a lot of work to do. So if we can make this trade, I think that's the move in the right direction.
Yep.
Moving on a little bit more to Derrick Rose, who I'm not as intrigued in, but I am interested. Derrick Rose, I could see us giving up a little bit for him as well. Obviously, our payroll would be kind of similar to the Lonzo deal if we traded for Derrick Rose, and that doesn't matter as much. But I could see us giving up Dennis Smith Jr. and a second-round pick from Charlotte. I think the idea with Detroit is they just want to bring in young assets. And we have a lot of young assets, don't get me wrong. And it's hard to give up guys like that. But at the same time, Dennis Smith Jr. not really working out. Maybe give him a second opportunity in Detroit, playing next to Blake Griffin, Sekou Doumbouya, Sadiq Bey, right? So give him a chance in Detroit. Maybe they take a chance on him. Maybe they want Frank instead. It's honestly interchangeable, like I said.
Yeah.
But that Charlotte second-round pick, that could really seal the deal. Obviously you want future assets as well, and maybe they want to trade up in this draft, so maybe you get the second-round pick from us. It's somewhere from the 30 to 45 range, and boom, you trade up in the draft for maybe another first-round pick or something like that. Who knows? And obviously it's for an expiring contract in Derrick Rose, who I think will move on next season to a different team. I think even if we have Derrick Rose for half a season, it's kind of a win in a way. The mentorship is going to be a nice aspect. Obviously, guys have guys like Quickly. You have guys like R.J. Barrett. They're two guards that kind of need a mentorship type thing. Elfrid Payton, sure, you can consider him a veteran, but he's still young, okay? As much as he doesn't really have much more to grow, his potential has kind of reached where it's at. He's not really going to teach much. Derrick Rose, I believe, is going to be a good teacher, kind of like a DeAndre Jordan when he came in and taught Mitchell Robinson a few things. I think that Derrick Rose could be that to the Knicks. And I also think that we may be able to lock him up on a decent deal if the money's right. So I think that trade could also be definitely a serviceable trade, and I'm totally cool with it. How do you feel about this, Zach?
Gonna be totally honest. I don't like it. I think
Okay.
it's really dumb. I think the trade that you have made, it's a great trade. I think that we don't use Dennis Smith. Might as well trade him, second round pick, sure. But when you think about it, what are you going to do with the point guards? Now you're just clogging point guards. You have Payne, you have Quickly, you have Rivers still, and now you're going to throw Rose in there. So you're screwing with minutes. I feel like who's going to be the odd man out? I would say Payne, but he's starting. He has like 25, 30 minutes a night. So it just doesn't really make sense. And I feel like we're still far from a serious contend. Well, we're obviously not serious contending, but maybe playoff contending this year if they keep it up. I don't know. If they're just going to let him go, I don't see the point. Maybe you just completely cut Payne's minutes, but he hasn't been playing that bad. So,
True.
and the chemistry's great right now. I don't know why you mess with it and clog another point guard in there. I truly just don't see the point.
Now here's
That's
the
my
thing.
full opinion.
I figured you'd say that, and I didn't know which way you'd go. And
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you in a lot of ways with the minutes. And Tom Thibodeau obviously would have to have a very strict rotation where he'd cut out quality players' minutes.
Yes.
And I think that would be tough. I definitely think Elfrid Payton's a guy that at the trade deadline we could just cut from the roster. I think he could get picked up by another team, but at the same time, if we're trading someone to the Pistons, I'm not sure if they would even care to pick up Elfrid Payton. I feel like they'd rather just take in Dennis Smith Jr. and not the additional salary. So that's the reason I didn't throw Elfrid Payton in that deal. But I don't think Elfrid Payton is a long-term guy for this team. I don't even think he's a short-term guy for this team. I think he probably has until the trade deadline to prove that he can shoot the ball, or he may be gone. His minutes may be cut with Quickly coming in, playing good off the bench. Um, and I did just add a tiny change to the trade. I saw this on Twitter, and I thought it was interesting. Derrick Rose for potentially a guy like Frank Ntilikina, like I mentioned, interchangeable. And Ignas Brazdeikis, too, who I do like. But at the same time, as much as people sleep on this man, he does have potential if you give him a chance. And Detroit is a perfect place to give him a chance. They are just absolutely awful. Okay? They have absolutely nothing to lose by giving a guy like that a chance, and they still get their Charlotte second round pick. Now, I know that doesn't clear up what you were saying about the minutes, and I agree in that stance, but I feel like Elfrid Payton would just have to be the odd man out. You cut him. Austin Rivers is a shooting guard instead of a point guard, so I could see him starting in those minutes. And obviously, quickly, he's interchangeable. He could be point guard or shooting guard. He played shooting guard in college. He played point guard in high school. But it just, he more of a pure shooter in that instance. So he can kind of move anywhere. I think Tibbs will figure out what to do with the minutes. I just think Peyton is going to be the odd man out in any scenario possible, even if we don't make a trade for Derrick Rose. I'm not sure if Peyton will be a long-term or short-term guy for this team. What do you have to say about that, Zach?
My question is, do you think they're going to cut Payne whether or not they make this trade?
I think that there's a good chance we do cut Peyton. I'm not sure if we'll
See,
cut him more than just let him sit on the bench, but Ennis Canner a few years ago had a similar situation where he just didn't fit in the rotation anymore. We had guys like Mitch coming in. Obviously, Porzingis was hurt, but Ennis just wasn't getting his minutes. And so, unfortunately, we had to just cut him from the team, although he was a quality player. So we've seen quality players been cut from teams multiple times, and it has nothing to do with their salaries. It has nothing to really to do with their play sometimes even. It just has to do with their fit. And Frank Ntilikina, I feel like, will be traded regardless. I think we may be able to get, at best, a second-round pick for him. It just depends what team is interested. Obviously, he kind of brings that Kendrick Nunn type of potential, but he has to stay. Or I'm sorry, not Kendrick Nunn. Chris Dunn. That's so far off. I don't know what I was thinking. But Chris Dunn, being that point guard defender type of guy, I think that's what Frank is going to be in the long term if he stays in the league. But if he can't find minutes on the Knicks and we can't trade him, Frank Ntilikina's time may be running out in the NBA. Unfortunately, he may have to go back to France or something like that, or overseas and play there, prove himself. But his time unfortunately is running out in the NBA, and if he doesn't pick it up, there's going to be a serious discussion about his future with this team. Unfortunately, as much as I love the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Um,
know how realistic. I don't know if they'll cut Payne, especially because you brought up the Ennis Canner thing. They're on like 11-game losing streak, worst team in the NBA that year. So
right.
they were just trying to tank at that point. But they're like 500 right now, and he's starting point guard. I don't know how realistic it is to just think they're just going to cut him. Be like, yeah, you're just a starting point guard in a 500 team. Like, I get the future thing, but they're playing well right now. I expect him to be gone after 1 year. Like, he's just a serviceable guy, and then they just, whoever starts over him, like a young guy. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how realistic it is to cut him. But if they get Derrick Rose, yeah, that makes sense. But if they
Right.
don't, I just don't see it.
Right. Because at the end of the day, always these are just rumors. There definitely could be a situation where we just see guys like Derrick Rose move on to the Clippers, and we see Lonzo go to the Warriors, and then we're the odd team out where we don't really have
Yeah,
any trades to make. Maybe we trade for a second or a first like we did last year, and we just kind of get in the same position in this offseason as we were the last offseason, which honestly is fine as long as we're developing our talent right and we're making the right draft decisions. But at the same time, you also kind of want to not speed up the rebuild in a way, but advance the rebuild. There's a big difference. If you get a guy like Lonzo on the team, you're advancing the rebuild. You're not speeding it up,
exactly.
you're helping it, right? If you get a guy like
Exactly.
Derrick Rose, you're helping it just as much because you're getting the fair mentorship, and you could potentially sign him on a cheap deal for the final years of his career almost. And at the same time, Derrick Rose is still a very serviceable point guard in the NBA, better than my opinion. Well, I don't even think that's opinion. I think that's fact in a way. I mean, he's developed this three ball. He's played under Thibodeau before, so there's a familiarity there. And I think that both those guys are great fits, and I think the Knicks are doing a good job by reaching out at least to some of these teams and seeing what is and is not available.